why does God have boring rules? It's like, why can't you just have sex with everybody? Or why can't we have homosexual sex and whatever, right? And a short answer I'd like to give is psychologists know God's rules lead to happiness. And you'd be like, oh, how do you psychologists know that? Well, first of all, check it on YouTube. They'll tell you that religion, if you are religious, you're far more likely to be happy than if you're not religious. That's one thing. Okay, there's loads of videos. This is kind of like what I talk about on these shows are kind of the ABCs of psychology that most people don't know. And most people are going the opposite direction of happiness, which is why they're struggling with happiness. And all I'm doing is kind of putting in front of you like really well-known things known by psychologists, but not known by the average person, which is why the average person is so miserable. So God doesn't really give boring rules. It's just that you don't really get them. And just if you study it a little bit, Google's out there, you'll be surprised what are the benefits of so many things. So what did I feel like, is that your side or my side? I feel like I'm gonna try closing. No, okay, sorry. I keep hearing beep beep. So all right.
Sorry.
So I thought it was my WhatsApp or something I'd open. Okay, sorry. It's your WhatsApp. Stop WhatsApping during my show. Anyway.
I
I
will do. I will do.
Sorry. Okay, anyway. So for example, Ricky Gervais, I do like him in many ways because I get a lot of inspiration about the problems or the questions I need to answer. So Ricky Gervais is a famous atheist, and one thing he said is, why did God make men's G-spot up their ass and then forbid homosexuality? Okay, and so this is one of those things that if you study it a little bit, you kind of go, oh, okay, there's a reason. So that you can experience pleasure in all sorts of ways. And by the way, I'm going to do a thing that I've never done before, which is a bit of editing. So when I play this video, when I take these live streams and I cut them up into pieces with individual questions. In the beginning of it, I'm going to put Ricky Gervais's little comedy sketch about that. And so look out for that. But anyway, generally speaking, if you look into nature, all pleasure is very specifically designed for a purpose, to encourage us to do things that our body needs. So we need to reproduce. And if you think about it, if there was no pleasure in reproduction and all you got was lots of hard work taking care of kids, spending loads of money, most people wouldn't bother doing it and the human race would be dead. So it's so important to have sex. It's so important to reproduce that sexual pleasure is one of the most kind of highest levels of pleasure that you can achieve. But the same goes with all sorts of other pleasures and pain, by the way. So if you're doing something wrong, like you bash your knee, if you didn't feel pain, people would normally just carry on and say, oh, it's only bleeding, I don't care about bleeding, bleeding's not a bad thing. But now, since you associate bleeding with pain, you kind of know that it's a bad thing. So pleasure and pain are very specifically designed. And if you look at, for example, I think people have forgotten somehow, even in this age of science, how amazingly intricate human beings are. We are the most advanced human beings. Our eyes are better than any robot out there. We kind of understand how our brains work. Our brains are just incredible, right? So same with our reproductive systems. They're so complicated, it's amazing. If you just start YouTubing it, like how the sperm is even created, how it goes on its journey towards the egg, and how it gets it. It's insane how complicated it is, right? So there's pleasure related to this very intricate design. And if we forget that there's a design and we're amazingly designed, okay, and we misuse that amazing design, it's like taking this phone, right? Now, phones are a bit more, I'm not sure if this example is going to be great, but phones are getting increasingly more waterproof. But because it's high tech, I have to be careful how I treat my my phone, I've put, a cover on it and stuff like that, and I don't drop it in water and stuff like that. It's the same with a human being. If you misuse it, it will go wrong. And there's tons of evidence. So if you start having anal sex, you're, especially homosexual sex, you are going to suffer. And all the evidence is out there, AIDS, STDs, whatever. When I donate blood, it's like, oh, have you had homosexual anal sex? Like, that's one of the boxes. If I tick that, I probably won't be able to donate blood. So it's not like religious people make these things up. If you misuse, pleasure is designed for a purpose. If you misuse that purpose, just because you can feel pleasure in a certain way doesn't mean you should so if you have pleasure, it's for a specific purpose. So if you, for example, I don't know, have an itchy, an itch in your ear, and just because some people put cotton bud in there and they clear out the wax and they quite enjoy that. My mum likes that, right? Imagine she goes, oh right, oh, it feels really good in here. I think I'm gonna start having sex through my ears. Just because you feel pleasure through your ears doesn't mean you should have sex with it. It's like everything isn't sex. It's just I've done quite a lot of talking. I could go on, but give you a chance to jump in. Or have you any thoughts about what I've said, or disagree with any of it?
Yeah, so obviously I disagree. Why does God have boring rules? I think that life is hard. Life can be a struggle. But religion, God has made religion easy. He's made it easy. And it's us culturally that have made it hard. Getting married, it's easy. Anyone can read anyone's wedding, appoint anyone as a man and wife. It's easy to get divorced, no biggie. But this big, we've made it into a huge culturally drama about having a big wedding and so on and so on. So we've made it hard, or boring, if you call it. Why does God have rules? I would say, and it's about the scales of at the end of your life, at the end of your activities. It's a summary of your conduct, of your thoughts. Have you been righteous? He has social. There's laws that pertain to social. Our responsibilities to our parents, being honest, being true, doing the good things, being charitable, like you say, whether it's referencing fasting or prayers. There are these rules, but I wouldn't say they're boring, and I wouldn't say they're hard. I think they are in tune with the natural world and the natural, as humans. And obviously in Islam, the greater good is more important than the individual good. So whilst we value an individual, the greater good comes first. So I don't think God has boring rules. And in our legal code, we have punishments for those that break the rules, and they may be sent to institutions to reform them. So we have rules. God has rules. There's rules for war. There's rules for at home, like we talked about just now. Rules for bedroom rules. Rules have to exist, and these are the rules that we dictated to by God.
Sure, yeah. I mean, if you open up a self-help book and it said the rules are, there are no rules. I think I copied that from something. I don't know. What is that? Cage fighting or something, but maybe not. But the point is, if it was an empty book, nobody would buy that self-help book. They're looking for rules. People are looking for rules. And often the best rules are the most boring looking ones. Okay, so there's a great TED talk. I love my TED talks, and they were like, the most exciting people look really boring on the surface. So if you look at Steve Jobs creating really amazing things, but how does he look? You know, he follows these rules who look really boring, like, oh, I'm just going to wear a black top and jeans every single day. And that's because so he could focus on the things he thought was important. So he made up his own rules about how to really experience life, rather than spending all his time on the mundane or unimportant things, which is like, you know, what you're going to wear. Like, you channel that energy into something great. And that's what these God rules are. The God rules, they're given because if we went according to our short-term, maybe you could call it animalistic desires, right? Where you're just thinking about tomorrow, then what you do is you sacrifice all the amazing things you could have. For example, you could say, you know, taking care of kids, that is so annoying. I'm just going to have kids and then toss them away and let them do whatever they want. But then when you grow up, you're going to be really miserable. Okay, nobody's going to take care of you, and they're going to treat you really badly as well, and everybody's going to treat everybody else badly. So there's these God rules. They seem boring on the surface, but a tiny bit of research, okay, and a tiny bit of persistence will make you realize that you get to experience life to the much greater depth and breadth by following those rules. It's like, why are we so boring that we go to school for 10 years? Because maybe by the end of it, you learn so much cool stuff that you can do amazing things. But if you didn't bother studying, you know, if you couldn't be bothered to study for more than one day because more than one day would be too boring, then you would just basically, you wouldn't have the internet and hardly anything cool would ever happen. So God rules, in short, they look really boring, but they're really awesome. They make life amazing. And this is not just me saying it. Countries where they practice those things, so I love going to the Middle East where they don't 100% practice all those God rules, as it were, but because they're like family orientated, you can go out in the evening and all the kids will be playing with all the other kids, and people are just relaxed and happy. They're wearing boring clothes, like the women are covered up, but when I go there, I feel so much more connected. Like the ladies who are wearing boring clothes will say my brother, and I'll say my sister, and people are a lot more connected with each other. And just because they trust each other, because they know that their relationships are not based on how they look, because they're all reasonably covered. So there's so many things I could just go into, but yeah. The rules look boring on the surface. It's just like science is boring on the surface until you study it for a bit more than a day. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, even in Britain, we have rules around relationships. For example, if I've got, or if somebody's got a girlfriend, then generally it's frowned upon for somebody else to, you know, spend, like, have a
Hit on them
relationship with
straight
them.
away. Like if
Yeah,
I was,
there's certain rules around
yeah,
relationships, even though they don't might not be married, and they may be boyfriend girlfriend, but the rules, they might have decided set their ground rules as well. We're not exclusive yet. We can see other people until they set those boundaries for themselves to say, right, now we're going to be an exclusive relationship. So yeah, we all have, there are these unwritten rules in relationships.
yeah. It's really interesting you even mentioned that. I mean, I'm not going to go into too much, but the Will Smith situation and his open marriage and how mental he's going has become really apparent. So people are free to experiment with their own rules, but all the statistics say that amazingly, the religious rules seem to work the best. So you can, you know, go and check up with psychologists and they'll tell you that. But anyway, so yeah.